If you're judging a home based on the photos that you're seeing online, you're probably being misled. Because the truth is that some of the best looking listings in your search feed, they're nothing more than a masterclass in illusion. And the ones that look kind of, well, those are sometimes the smartest buys in the entire neighborhood. So how do you tell the difference? How do you avoid falling in love with that one home that looks amazing online, but then it disappoints the moment you walk in? Well, that's exactly what we are going to be diving into today. We're going to talk about 5 real-world truths that most buyers, they don't find out until it's too late. And this is the kind of stuff that can save you thousands of dollars and also months of regret. We're talking about the psychology behind the listings, the traps that you want to watch out for, and what really matters when you're about to make one of the biggest purchases of your entire life. Also, you want to make sure you stick around until the end because I'm going to show you one little known move that is going to give you massive leverage when you're ready to make that offer. But it only is going to work if you catch it in time. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. The first one is photos. The photos do not lie. So let me just put this bluntly. Listing photos are designed to seduce you, right? They're taken with these wide angle lenses to make rooms twice as big as what they actually are. And they're staged. They're staged to look like they're the kind of place that you'd see in a designer magazine, not somewhere where real people actually live. And with the right editing, you can even brighten up the darkest corners. You can remove flaws, or you can stretch that room to make it look, well, just kind of unreal, right? And it's more common than what you might think. In fact, it happens all the time. But the one thing that photos can't fake is the layout. And that's where you're going to find out how the space actually flows and whether it works in your real life. So for example, the bedrooms, are they separated from the main living area? Or maybe the kitchen, right? Is it open to everything? Or is it tucked away kind of like a galley on a boat? Because the layout actually affects how you use the home every single day. And then down the road, it's also going to affect the resale value too. A bad floor plan isn't something you can just throw money at and fix. In fact, I did another video all about what to look out for in a floor plan, including what I consider to be the best, most functional, and also the absolute worst, the ones that you want to stay away from. So if you're interested, you can find that on my playlist. Also, here's another tip. If there's a floor plan available, pull it up alongside the photos. And if there's not, you want to make sure you ask your agent to request one. And if you're also touring the home in person, make sure you walk through slowly and imagine your actual routine every day. Where would you drop off your keys? Where would you be sleeping when your partner is maybe up late at night working or, watching TV? Would you actually hear them? Would they keep you awake? Or is the bedroom maybe beside the dining room table? These are the kind of things that actually matter, right? Now, even if the layout checks out, the next step is even sneakier because this one is going to mess with your logic and your emotions. Have you ever read a listing that says something like, charming and cozy starter home with tasteful updates and tons of potential? Well, let me translate that for you. Charming equals old. Cozy equals small. Tasteful updates, well, that usually equals new paint and new light fixtures. Tons of potential, well, it usually means it needs work and they're hoping that you don't notice. Look, listing language is designed to sell the sizzle, not the steak. But what really matters here is the stuff under the surface, the parts that, impact your comfort, your safety, and your long-term costs. So ask yourself the right questions, such as how old is the furnace? What's the insulation like up in the attic? And has the wiring been updated? These are the kind of things that don't make a listing pop, but they do make a huge difference in your day-to-day life and your monthly bills. Also, you need to ask yourself if those updates that they talk about are structural, or are they just what I sometimes refer to as lipstick on a pig, right? So you need to be careful because sometimes those cosmetic upgrades can hide deeper, shall we say, uglier problems. And for those reasons and more, you always want to get the full home inspection. Yes, even for condos, because no, strata documents, they do not cover everything. But here's the kicker. Even if the home checks out, it's only part of the equation, because you're not just buying the house, right? You're actually buying the street. You're buying the block, the school zone. You're also buying the people next door to you. And none of that is going to show up in the listing. So that quiet cul-de-sac, well, it might turn into a construction zone by next summer. Or that family-friendly street, well, it might be full of Airbnbs and random traffic every single weekend. So there's no substitute for actually being there. And ideally, you want to visit that home at different times of the day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And ask yourself, is it noisy? Is it dark at night, or is it well lit? Do the neighbors host loud parties every night? And ask yourself these things like, where's the nearest grocery store or the pharmacy if you need one? How far of a walk is it to public transit? Or, do people shovel their sidewalks, or do they let them ice over in the winter months? And here's a pro tip that almost no one does, and that is to talk with the neighbors, right? Knock on their door and ask them how they like the area. You might be amazed at what they're going to share with you. They could share anything from a problem landlord to maybe pending future developments. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you look up the city's development map. Almost every municipality has these. They're searchable databases where they show what is coming. So it could be high rises, rezoning, road expansions. These are the kind of things that you're going to want to know before you move in and not after. And speaking of what's coming next, let's talk about something that most buyers assume is fixed, but it isn't, which is the price. And let's be real here. The price of the listing, it's just the starting point. It is not a final invoice. A bargain price does not mean the home is a deal. In fact, it could mean that the seller is desperate, or even worse, that they're trying to generate a bidding war. So here's what you need to make sure that you ask and look for. How many days has it been sitting on the market? Also, has it been taking on and off the market? Has it been relisted in order to reset that clock? And have there been price reductions? If so, when and how often? By the way, ask your agent to pull up the full listing history, including any past MLS numbers. If there were failed offers, or if it's been sitting for a while, that can give you some solid leverage to push for a better price or better terms. And this is where smart buyers really win. So if you haven't already done so, make sure you grab a free copy of my buyer negotiation playbook. It's in the description box below, and it's going to walk you through exactly how you can use this kind of information to your advantage. Now, that said, none of this is going to matter if the bones of the home are bad. And unfortunately, that's the kind of stuff that listings usually hide the best, because what you can't see might be the most expensive. So here's what you're never going to find in the listing. Nobody's going to say that the foundation is cracked behind the drywall, or that the 30-year-old poly B pipes are also there behind the walls, or the aluminum wire is spliced with copper in the attic, or perhaps that the Strata's reserve fund, well, it's $200,000 short of what it needs to be. These are the kind of issues that don't show up in the glossy photos, but they will show up in your bank account, and often not until 6 months after you move in. And that's why the best buyers, they always do their due diligence. So for detached homes and strata, you want to make sure that you get a full inspection, not just a walk around, but you want to get a proper look at the roof. You're going to look at the crawl space, the wiring, the plumbing, the grading, absolutely everything. And then for condos, don't just skim over the strata minutes, all right? You need to read them carefully. It's boring, trust me, I know, but you need to read the depreciation report, the insurance documents, the budget, and the bylaws. It's very boring, but I've had clients literally avoid $40,000 levies just by reading 2 pages in a PDF that most people simply ignore. And pro tip here as well, if the strata doesn't provide detailed documents, or maybe they're avoiding your questions, that is a red flag, and I would suggest you consider walking away. And here's the thing, even if you catch all of this, most people, they still get stuck when it comes time to actually writing the offer. Why? Well, because they don't know how to use what they've uncovered to gain leverage. And that is where you can really win. And so in my next video, I'm going to show you how to spot buyer leverage points that most people miss and how you can use them to negotiate a better price, better terms, and avoid costly surprises after your closing. And most buyers, they do not even realize they have this kind of power until it's too late. So listen, if you have any questions or you want to chat more about any of this, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.